Hello and welcome to this episode of CNBC Africa Special. You've been away from Malawi for the last 4 years. Now you're going home from Johannesburg to Malawi. What are you looking forward to? How does it feel?
I am just so happy that I have done all I wanted to do and I'm going home. You know, personally, I don't even understand. There's so much excitement in Malawi. There's so much excitement everywhere. I guess I'm the only one who is not excited.
Okay.
I'm just happy I'm going back home.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the reception that's awaiting you there?
It's huge. I don't even know what to do. I mean, it's been on the news all week, and even the quiz for calling program, asking young people to say what is Joyce Banda's middle name, and you know, it's just been a week of hyper, and I am totally surprised myself, and I'm humbled as well, because I didn't know just how much Malawians love me.
Yeah. So you've been in South Africa for a very long time, or have you spent also time?
I have been in the US.
US, yeah.
I just came here 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
But you were at the Winnie Mandela funeral.
Yes, I
as
came.
well.
Yes, I attended. I couldn't have missed it.
You couldn't have missed it.
No.
Any special thoughts on that day when you were at the funeral?
Not only at the funeral, but you will recall that when Madiba died,
Yes.
I was head of SADC.
Yes.
And I am the one who gave the speech at the funeral in Kunu.
Yes.
And up until that time, I had read so much about Winnie Mandela and always wanted to have an opportunity to thank her and to say how much I feel she gave so much and got so little in return.
Yeah.
And so when I got that opportunity to speak, I included that in my speech.
Right.
But I was surprised at the applaud. I didn't know why everybody was applauding, because I said we must never allow ourselves to forget what Mama Winnie Mandela did to keep the name of Madiba alive. Right. And I want to pay special tribute to her.
Right.
I was told later that that whole day or days before, nobody had recognized her in that way.
Right.
So she asked to meet me, and I also asked to meet her.
Is it?
Because if you go back to my speech at Kunu, you will hear what I said about my first encounter with Tata Madiba Mandela, that I asked Graça Machel to organize that I meet my hero at least once in my lifetime.
Right.
So again, I had to seek an opportunity for me to meet her, and she too was looking for me. And so since then, we developed a relationship, and I have been greatly inspired. But sitting there talking to Mama Winnie Mandela about her struggle and her fight for the people's freedom here in South Africa made me feel very small. I've spent all my adult life fighting for the emancipation of women and girls in my country and across Africa.
Yes.
But listening to her story, I just felt, what is it that I can do to do more? I haven't done enough. The tragedy is that then her reputation was dented. But then these past 2 weeks, as we mourned her, people came one after another, confessing that they had smeared her.
Yeah.
And then, so I was awakened to the battle that we have as women leaders.
That's true.
Because now it is clear that women's leadership is under attack. That the system will do all it takes to bar us from participating in leadership. I am just coming back from African Union today.
Yes.
The African women leaders
Yes.
are meeting in Addis Ababa. The UN and the AU have initiated the formation of a network of women leaders.
Yes.
And I'm on the steering committee.
Fantastic.
And I was honored to give a special tribute on behalf of the women of Africa, on behalf of Mama Winnie Mandela this past week.
So you mentioned female leadership, and this obviously transcends across the continent. We don't have any female presidents at the moment. You were Africa's second female president. Why do you think it is this way? This is a continent of 54 countries. Why are there very few women in politics?
If you search, you are the journalist, and you can search, women's leadership is under attack globally. You start from Australia, look at what happened to Julia Gillard. And you go to Thailand, Look at what happened to the former Prime Minister. She subsidized rice for the poor. Then she was overthrown because they said government lost money because of that. She was laughing it off when they arrested her. She said, I'll go through trial, believing that there's no way any charge can come out of this. But her Minister of Trade and Deputy, who implemented that program, were arrested to 40 years and 37 years in jail. Then she had to run. You go to Brazil, we sat down and watched helplessly. And the world was told that she was not directly involved in the corruption there. She gave a false impression of the financial situation, that it was rose during the election. They said that was the crime. The tragedy was that the people impeaching her were themselves being investigated at her request for corruption.
Right.
But so we watched our fellow friend go down and be impeached. If you go to the United States, I've been speaking a lot in the US, and the question I always ask in my speech, tell me why, the oldest democracy, for 200 years, you have not managed to have one woman in State House. So coming back to your question and coming back to Africa, we haven't done badly. At least we had 4 women.
Yes.
We went to Beijing in 1995. We agreed in Beijing as part of the work plan that we were going to come back and get into leadership. I remember asking Mrs. Gertrude Mongela, who was the Secretary General for the Beijing conference, how? Because men are already sitting in the seats. How do we go to Parliament? They said, go and push them if you have to. And we went home and we tried our level best and we got into leadership. I think the challenge we have across Africa, yes, indeed, we have had 4 presidents get into State House. But as you go one by one and check how they left, go and see what Catherine Panza is going through in Central African Republic.
Yes, yeah.
Go and see what is happening in Mauritius
Yes.
to our friend who just left a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, you ask, what is it? So my position on this matter, why is it that we don't have any more leaders in Africa? My answer is as follows. We've done well as a continent. We have found ways of helping our women get into State House. But perhaps what remains for us to learn is how do we keep them there?
Keep them there.
Keep them there. And Africa hasn't done badly. I have been told, somebody asked me, what do you know about, what can you say about feminism? I said, no, Africa shall have its own, shall design its own, because we can't copy what's happening elsewhere, unless we are convinced it's working there.
Right.
But then how can we copy other models where women are still not getting equal pay, where women can't even go on maternity leave, where for 200 years there's no president? But the country with the highest number of women in parliament is on the continent of Africa. And the 3 countries on the continent of Africa have 40% women in cabinet.
That's true.
And the time I was head of state, I took advantage of that position to appoint my fellow women. So for the first time, we had a Chief Justice that was a woman, Solicitor General that was a woman, Head of Civil Service that was a woman, 2 Deputy Governors of Reserve Bank, 8 District Commissioners, 100 appointments. So the advantage of us getting into State House is that we focus on social issues. You want people to have electricity every day. You want people to have clean water every day. You want people to have fuel every day. You want the hospitals to have medicines. You want the schools to have school materials. The challenge is, how do we keep the women in State House?
How do you keep them there? Is it predominantly the patriarchal mindset in politics?
It is.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the death of Mama Winnie Mandela and all that has been reviewed these past 2, 3, 4 weeks has opened a debate. And women are sitting down and saying, how could we not have seen? Because for the rest of her life, that's what her daughter said when she spoke at the funeral.
Yes.
Why did you people wait until my mother is gone to vindicate her? That is the kind of pain women are going through. And nobody seems to care. I don't know why the media doesn't seem to dig more into this misogyny, chauvinism, and abuse to women leaders. So maybe you'll be happy to hear that Madeleine Albright, the former Secretary General of Secretary of State of the U.S., has initiated the form as chair of NDI, what she's calling Not the Cost campaign, to look closely at the abuses women just aspiring to participate in political careers are facing.
Is this some kind of a witch hunt, you think? I mean, all these allegations as they place against ministers and leaders.
You know, what I have been told, and I was awakened, I didn't know myself, but it was on one of the channels, to say if you check, everybody when she's pushed out, there's a legal case.
Yes.
Yeah, so the idea is that when you are charged, then you can't come back.
Mm-hmm.
That is the idea.
That's the idea.
But I think for a person like me, I went into State House under very difficult circumstances, as you know.
Yes.
For 72 hours,
Yes.
I was not allowed to take off.
Yes.
So the first day I got into office, there was no fuel for a day. There was money for 1 week. The economy had only grown for 1.8% by 1.8%. Companies were operating at 35% because they couldn't import raw materials. So I came into office. Our relationship had been broken with our neighbors, and including Britain, our biggest donor. We had even exchanged our ambassadors back home. That's when I came into office. There was no fuel for a day.
Right.
So everybody in Malawi that you know, including those that are around you, they will tell you what I tried to do in 2 years. From the day I went in to the day I left, there was no shortage of fuel, there was no shortage of electricity, there was no shortage of water. The economy grew by 6.3%,
Mm-hmm.
and the companies that were working at 35% ended up working at 85%. And the 2 million people had no food when I came in.
Mm-hmm.
We harvested 3.9 million metric tons. So for me, when you get the opportunity as head of state or cabinet minister, just do the best you can during that time.
Right.
Because that's what people are going to remember. Perhaps in my case, I was naive, because then I decided, then I've been elected by the European Union ambassador, that there is corruption. I must fight that. Because I have always said that leadership is a love affair. You must fall in love with the people, and the people must fall in love with you.
Right.
So for you, the way you love your husband, you can't allow anybody to exploit him or to abuse him. So for me, if you're stealing from the people that I love, then I'm not going to let you be. I'm going to do something about the situation.
Right.
So I think I was naive, but I was warned that it's not easy, because they fight you back. They're strong people. They will smear this back onto you. But I was lucky, because I had a friend at the World Bank by the name of Obi. She was the deputy president in the World Bank. And later on, she had retired. She was my advisor. When she heard what program I had started, because I announced to the nation, I called opposition parties to State House. I called civil society to State House. I have been elected. There is corruption, and I will make arrests.
Right.
She came and told me that route you're taking is a very dangerous route and slippery.
Right.
So for you to protect yourself, conduct a forensic audit. Have a document that will exonerate you.
And that is what is.
And that's what I did. We didn't have the money, so we went to the British High Commission, and the British government funded the forensic audit, and the Baker Tilly audit firm was appointed and conducted the forensic audit. And thank God it exonerated me. And by the time the report came out with names,
Right.
I was out of office for 6 months.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's great. So with all these challenges stacked up against you now on your return, how are you going to renew the faith of the people? What are your plans really?
I think that I would want journalists to go and check. I don't need to go and rebuild any faith on the part of the people.
Yeah.
Where I am, I did my part.
Yes.
And every Malawian that you ask will tell you what I achieved. I've just told you my success story.
Right.
So I don't need to go back to State House.
Yeah.
No, I did my part. Anybody else can become president of Malawi.
Do you have any presidential ambitions again?
No,
are you
I
going to be a
don't.
part of?
It is not up to me.
it?
So I don't care about going to State House. So I don't need to go, but you need to, because today on 702, please listen to what that reporter is saying. They have taken the trouble to send a reporter to Malawi. And if all day today he has been reporting about how people are hopeful, the excitement, everybody wants me to go back. So when you say, how am I going to convince the people? I don't need to convince anybody. In fact, for your information, I have no speech when I get home. I have no speech at all. I'm just going back home.
Are you planning to go back to politics?
No, I am not planning anything. As from this far,
Yeah.
I don't know the landscape, the political landscape on the ground.
Right.
I think it would be, I'm highly experienced in politics.
Yes.
I was very fortunate. The same chauvinism we're talking about.
Yes.
When my husband retired as Chief Justice, I decided I've waited for him. He has retired. Now I can enter politics. So I entered at age 54. I was late.
Yes.
But then I learned from day one. And the president then didn't allow me to join the National Executive Committee. So he sent me down to grassroots. So I came from grassroots as treasurer in the village. So
Right.
I had the opportunity to study. And then I was fortunate when I was in 2003 elected the head of women in my party, UDF. My president then, President Mruzi, sent me to Tanzania to be attached to Chama cha Mapinduzi. So when it comes to politics, I know just what to do. But it's not, I think it's not necessary for me to push. There's so much I can do. I don't know if you know what I've been doing since I left.
No, I would love to hear. You mentioned that you've won 12 awards. You're on the boards. You're on 12 boards. You said. Can you tell
5
us
boards,
more?
yeah.
5.
What happened is the way the elections were so controversial.
Yes.
I went to the States for the U.S. Africa Summit by President Obama.
Right.
To speak at a side event. Then I went back home. Then around September, during the UN General Assembly, I had been invited to go for several meetings. So I went back to America. Then it began to occur to me to say that I think it's important for me to get out. I didn't know at that time that there are so many former presidents' programs.
Right.
Like President Rupia went to Boston.
Sure.
And President Mogai of Botswana went to the Woodrow Wilson. So when I went that second time for UNGA, I was told that you can get an opportunity. They will interview you. You will serve as a distinguished fellow. You can research on a matter that you want. You can write papers. And I got excited. So I decided, let me find a place where I can go and write. So I approached the Center for Global Development.
Right.
The Center for Global Development did not have the resources. So they went to the Woodrow Wilson Center. Woodrow Wilson was president number 29, I think.
Yes.
And so they are supported by the US government.
Right.
I shall forever be grateful to the US government for what they have done for me during my entire adult life, particularly this period. So when I went there, I decided I wanted to research on issues of women's participation in leadership.
Right.
What's going on? What is the problem? Because we African women have always been leaders. So there's nothing we are asking for now that we haven't done before.
Yes.
We were already queens and queen mothers and the emperors.
That's a good point.
And we fought. In fact, it is the colonialists that pushed us back.
Right.
They say, if you read Google sometimes, they will say that they didn't know, but their system they were coming from didn't have that kind of space for women. So we were pushed aside. Right. 50 years later, our brothers on the continent started fighting for self-rule. Women rose up to the occasion.
That's true.
And joined their brothers. And hence the Winnie Mandelas, Albertina Sisulu, Lillian Ngoyi, Rose Chiwambo of Malawi.
They've not been celebrated enough.
Nothing. Yeah, so we joined and fought with our brothers. So so that's, if you read the paper I published, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm looking at the challenges, and I'm looking at the opportunities, and I'm making recommendation in that paper I published at the Woodrow Wilson Center. At the Center for Global Development, concerned still about women's leadership, I am making a case, but it is also scientifically proven that leaders are born. You don't just wake up and become a leader.
Absolutely.
You are born with traits. In the beginning, I used to say 100%, but research says only 30%. So you are born, you can see 5-year-olds playing, you will know the one that is born with 30% traits there. The challenge that I see in a poor household, a rural household, this girl child has been born with 30% leadership traits. She eats less than the brother. Right. She works harder than everybody else. She is overworked. She is defiled, but also harmful traditions. She is she's mutilated.
Definitely.
And she is initiated. All these are happening before 10 years old. Now, when you look at most Western countries, they are providing resources for adolescent girl children. That money is plenty. But me, as an African woman leader, I'm saying, no, it's 0 to 10. So I published a paper there. that corresponds with leadership, because that's where it must start from.
Right.
How do we create an environment for this girl child that we support her, lift her up, hold her by the hand, educate her to become the leader she was meant to be? Because they say 70% has to be added.
Absolutely.
Now, how do we add that 70%? So when I published that paper, there was so much interest generated. So they offered me that I can write a book. So I've just finished 2 weeks ago this book, and the title is From Day One. It's about the girl child, the issues I was raising, but now in a book form.
Has it been published as yet?
It's at the printers now.
Is it?
That's
Wow.
why now I was able to come back. So I in the time that I've been away from home, I've spoken 37 times.
Right.
I've received 12 international awards. I've written those 2 papers. I've written a book. I've been appointed to 5 international awards, and I've received an honorary doctorate.
Fantastic.
So everybody that has been with me in the US, they know that I've run non-stop. It's been time well spent. At the Woodrow Wilson Center, they even assisted me to draw up a toolkit. So now I have got a toolkit. I can now go in any country and speak with authority about how I feel women should be treated, how the space should be created at the table for women to participate in leadership.
That's fantastic. So in Malawi, what are your plans for women and children? Are you going to be, I know you have a foundation there as well.
Yes.
Is it still, is
Huge.
that work huge? Yeah.
The Joyce Banda Foundation is bigger than Joyce Banda. The Joyce Banda Foundation is 20 years old.
Right.
I established it in 1997 when I received the Africa Prize.
Right.
So it cuts across all parties. It has 500,000 women beneficiaries in microfinance. It has sent to school 6,500 girls.
Right.
It has a sponsorship program. It has a youth program. We have 5 pillars in the Joyce Banda Foundation. One is income. We believe that in the rural household, if there's income, the woman is in control and can send, if it goes into that household through the woman,
Right.
the woman will be able to provide better health, better nutrition, and will even send girls to school, and will also make decisions about her life.
Right.
Yeah, she can make choices to stay or leave an abusive place. And the second pillar is education for the girl child, because if she doesn't go to school, then she's exposed to all these harmful traditions I was talking about earlier. The third is maternal health, because the girls, my research has shown that those that are dying giving birth are between the ages of 11 to 19.
Right.
So there's connection with education. This girl child should go to secondary school. The 4 years in secondary school is not just about her future, it's also about her health. The fourth pillar is leadership. I believe that we must find ways, hence my research,
Right.
find ways of allowing more and more women enter politics, enter leadership, participate in leadership. And the last one is human rights, which is a cross-cutting
Right.
pillar.
So what currently is the investment climate in Malawi? I mean, what do you have to say about it in terms of the regulatory environment as well?
No, you know what I have done? I believed that the way I left office, I needed to step aside and look the other way
Right.
and provide an opportunity for the sitting president to freely show his capabilities. He is my president
Right.
because I considered and I accepted that he can become president. So the last thing I want to do is now to poke my nose into, you're not doing this right. I just sit back and feel sad, and I'm surprised when they say people are going 36 hours without electricity. I don't understand that.
Right.
So now they call me, oh no, bring back the switch, you must have taken the switch. I said, no, the switch is there. So I don't understand about some of the hardships my Malawians are facing. Because I say this because it's connected. When you say what is the investment climate, there's
Yes.
nobody who is going to invest in a country that has 170 megawatts to the grid for electricity. That doesn't happen. Yeah.
The Sustainable Development Goals, how well are you connected to that? What are your aims for it, for your own country?
You know, on the 5th and 6th of March, I was invited by the World Bank to go and speak on the fragile nations. There are 31 fragile nations. These are nations that are off track completely on achieving SDGs, and they're not going to achieve. And so they wanted me to go and share what is it that we can do. Those 31 countries, I think about half or more than half, are in conflict or are fighting.
Right.
But Malawi is one of them.
Yes.
So it's a tragedy. If you are carrying 72 people and you are the driver of that bus and it ends up in a ditch, people will ask, was the driver drunk? Was he sleeping? So you can't say, don't ask me, although I'm a leader. So even when you look at the countries in conflict, the conflict could have been avoided. Sometimes people have fought for 30 years and they don't even know when they reconcile, what were we fighting about? So as leaders, we can avoid conflict and come back, endeavor to come back to stay on course. And places like Malawi, there's so much that we can do to make sure that maybe we achieve some of the SDGs. Because if we don't, it's going to be tragic. And especially that the Malawi the Millennium Development Goals, we failed to achieve 3 and 5, which had to do with women. Isn't it a shame?
It's such a shame.
Yeah, so it's such a shame. So not this time. This time we are saying, let us run. If 31 countries have decided they're going to focus on other things and not run with us, the rest must run.
And thank you so much for being on the show with us. That's all we have time for now. This is Renuka Methul signing off for CNBC Special.